They told him to wait outside, not knowing he owned the airline. It started with a pair of scuffed sneakers, not the kind you'd expect to see on the feet of a man who just took the reins of a multi-billion-dollar airline. But that's exactly why he wore them. Darnell R. Whitaker, 44, leaned against the passenger drop-off rail outside Terminal B of Hartsfield-Jackson International, holding nothing but a faded backpack and a regular boarding pass for Gate 24A. No entourage, no luxury luggage, no one to announce him or roll out the red carpet. Just a quiet man in a gray hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, standing beneath the giant SkyConnect Airlines banner he paid to have redesigned. His breath left a soft puff in the early morning air. Planes were taking off every few minutes, yet no one glanced at him twice. And that was the point, because no one knew that the man being ignored right now owned the airline. 3 weeks earlier, Darnell had turned down a PR-heavy company tour after being promoted to CEO. He didn't want the fake handshakes, the cleaned-up terminals, the coffee waiting for him in perfectly staged break rooms. Instead, he wanted raw, unfiltered, real. He'd made the decision after reading yet another customer complaint, this one from an elderly black woman in Baton Rouge who'd been escorted away from a lounge she'd paid for, simply because staff weren't sure she belonged. That line stayed in his chest. Weren't sure she belonged. He needed to see what his company felt like from the ground. A shuttle hissed as it pulled away behind him, and Darnell checked his phone, boarding in chapter 52 minutes. He moved through the terminal without a word, passing flight crews, kiosks, a group of teenagers in matching band t-shirts, and an airport janitor who gave him the only nod of the morning. At Gate 24A, a sign pointed toward the SkyConnect Premium Lounge, the flagship version of a service he'd been personally involved in redesigning. The lounge was his idea, his baby, supposed to be a place of comfort, equality, and elite care, a place where everyone who paid or earned their way in felt seen. He adjusted his cap and stepped off the main path toward the glass-paneled entrance. Behind the counter stood a slim woman in her late 30s with a tight ponytail and a name tag that read, Taylor, Shift Lead. Her eyes skimmed him like he was invisible. He stopped, gave a polite smile, and opened his wallet to pull out his Diamond Elite membership card. Before he could even speak, she raised a hand. Sir, this lounge is for SkyConnect Premium members only. I know, he replied calmly. I am one. Diamond Elite, actually. She didn't check the card, didn't look at his ID, just crossed her arms. We've had a lot of people trying to sneak in lately, she said flatly. You'll need to wait outside. Security's right over there if you have questions. Darnell paused. Not angrily, just long enough to wonder how many people she'd spoken to like this. How many people who looked like him had been told to wait outside before. He gave a small nod and backed away without a word. The security guard nearby eyed him but didn't say anything. Taylor turned to whisper something to another lounge worker who smirked. Darnell walked a few yards down the corridor and sat quietly by a vending machine, phone in hand. He wasn't upset. He was processing. Because sometimes silence tells you more than noise ever could. But what he heard next from the other side of that glass wall made it impossible to stay quiet. From where Darnell sat, he could hear everything. The glass wall that divided the lounge from the rest of the terminal wasn't soundproof, and neither were the employees inside. That same supervisor, Taylor, was laughing softly with the other worker. A tall guy in a navy vest with lounge ops embroidered on the chest. His name tag said Riley. She really thought he was going to make it in with that outfit, Riley said, chuckling. Man looked like he was coming from the Waffle House, not Delta One. Taylor smirked, sipping from her stainless steel tumbler. I swear, these people think flashing a card makes them somebody. Darnell blinked. These people. That one stuck. He wasn't new to this kind of thing, not even close. But to hear it, so casual, so automatic, in a space built to represent premium service, that was different. A child nearby dropped a toy, and Darnell leaned over to hand it back to the mother, who smiled and thanked him. He nodded, then sat back in his seat. Quiet again. He watched. In the next 10 minutes, 4 more people approached the lounge entrance. A middle-aged white man in a Patagonia vest strolled up, pulled out his phone, and without presenting ID or ticket, was waved right in. Then came a younger white woman in yoga pants and Ugg boots. She barely slowed down. Taylor smiled and buzzed her through without a glance. Then an older Asian couple, Riley gave a quick glance to their tickets, nodded, and let them through after a minor delay. But then came a young black man in a designer tracksuit, headphones around his neck. He paused in front of the desk and held up his platinum card. Taylor didn't even try to fake it. "I'm going to need to verify that with a government-issued ID and a confirmed boarding pass," she said. The man looked confused, but handed them over. "You can wait over there," she added, pointing to the wall. "It'll be a few minutes." Darnell watched him shuffle to the side. 3 more passengers walked in behind him, 2 white women and a Latino man, and were all admitted within seconds. Nobody checked anything. The kid in the tracksuit looked down at his phone, tapping his foot. Taylor never looked his way again. Darnell stood up slowly, took a deep breath, and dialed a number. 1 ring, 2. A voice answered. "Marcus, it's me. I need you at Terminal B lounge entrance. 15 minutes. Bring Alex and the airport liaison. Don't say anything when you get here. Just stand with me." Then he hung up. As he walked back toward the desk, Taylor noticed him and frowned. "I already told you." He held up 1 finger. "Just 1 more minute." She rolled her eyes. "Security can escort you out, sir." "Don't bother," he said, stepping aside, because just then, a black SUV pulled up curbside outside the terminal. Moments later, 3 sharply dressed individuals strode toward the lounge. Marcus Ingram, SkyConnect's chief strategy officer, Alex Tran, head of customer experience, and a woman from the airport's PR team. They didn't say a word as they walked up and stood next to Darnell. Taylor's jaw twitched. Is everything okay?" Darnell took off his cap. Let them see him. "I'm Darnell Whitaker," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "I'm the new CEO of SkyConnect Airlines." Taylor froze. "I tried to enter the lounge earlier as a Diamond Elite member. You refused me entry. You refused him too," he added, pointing to the young man still standing awkwardly near the wall. The terminal quieted. A few passengers nearby were watching now. "And I want to know," Darnell continued, locking eyes with Taylor, "how long this has been happening." But before she could speak, Riley blurted something that changed everything. Riley, still standing behind the counter, didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what was happening. He let out a short laugh, nervous, defensive. "Man, we're just trying to keep things tight around here," he said, holding up his hands. "You know how it is. Folks be trying to scam their way in all the time. We gotta be careful." Darnell turned his head slowly. "Careful? With who exactly?" Silence. No answer. Taylor, now visibly uncomfortable, started typing rapidly at her computer, pretending to be busy. Marcus stepped forward slightly, his jaw tense, but Darnell raised a hand to stop him. "I don't need anyone to speak for me." He turned back to Riley. "You let 6 people in without checking a single name. I watched it. You didn't ask for ID, didn't look at tickets, didn't even slow them down. But you stopped me. You stopped him." He nodded again toward the young man in the tracksuit. "And you made assumptions." Taylor opened her mouth, but Darnell cut her off. "Don't. Please. Just don't." He turned and addressed the young man behind him. "What's your name?" Terrell," the guy said, shifting uncomfortably. "Terrell Mayfield. I just made platinum last month, man. First time even trying to come in here." Darnell nodded. "I'm sorry this was your first experience with us." Terrell gave a weak smile. "Ain't the first time something like this happened, though." That one hit harder than anything else, and that's when Darnell stepped away from the counter and walked straight into the lounge past the stunned employees. Not another word. He moved toward a quiet corner where a small group of guests had started noticing the tension outside. He turned and addressed the room. "My name is Darnell Whitaker. I'm the CEO of this airline. Some of you may not know me. And honestly, that's okay. I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to see." Whispers rippled through the lounge. Phones were discreetly lifted. A few people sat straighter in their chairs. "I wanted to understand what this place feels like for someone who isn't wearing a suit. Someone without a press badge or a camera crew. I came in as myself. Not the version they show in Forbes." He paused, glancing toward the glass wall. Taylor and Riley hadn't moved. Airport security had now arrived, but stayed at a distance, likely briefed on who was who. "I sat out there and watched the way people were treated. What I saw confirmed something we've been getting complaints about for a long time. And now I know for sure this isn't about membership levels. It's about judgment." He let that hang. The PR liaison stepped forward quietly, offering a tablet. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, "we've compiled some recent complaints about this lounge location. Would you like to review them now, or—" "Now," he said. He sat down, took the tablet, and began scrolling. There were dozens, some short, some long, names redacted, but the patterns were clear. Black and brown travelers being turned away or overly scrutinized. Staff using phrases like "you people" or accusing guests of not looking like they belonged. A few even described Taylor by name. He scrolled slowly, word by word. Then he stood up again. "We're going to make this right, but not tomorrow, today." But before he could give his final word, a woman seated in the lounge stood up, and what she said next shifted the entire room. She looked to be in her late 60s. Black slacks, maroon blouse, silver-gray twists pulled back into a low bun. She had been sitting quietly near the lounge's far wall, reading a book and sipping tea. But when Darnell said, "We're going to make this right," she stood. "Mr. Whitaker," she said softly, her voice clear but steady, "I know who you are." All eyes turned to her. "We met once, briefly. You spoke at an event in Jackson 5 years ago. Black professionals in aviation. I was the only gate agent in that room, remember? Everyone else had titles longer than my arm." Darnell blinked, tilting his head slightly, then nodded. "I do remember. I said something like, 'Titles don't define leadership.'" The woman smiled faintly. "You also said if you ever got the chance to run a company, you'd make sure people like me were never overlooked again." She took a step forward. "I've been overlooked plenty. I've worked for Sky Connect 31 years. I've trained dozens of people who now outrank me. And I've walked into this lounge in uniform and been told more than once to use the employee break room instead." A few gasps from the crowd. Taylor looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. "I didn't say anything those times," the woman added. "I just went back to work. But maybe I should have." Darnell met her eyes. "You're saying something now. That matters." The woman nodded and sat back down. The room was still. Darnell turned to Marcus and Alex. "I want every employee who submitted complaints or reports about this location reviewed again, starting today. Cross-check names, look at who got ignored, who got retaliated against, and I want lounge access logs pulled from the last 3 months." Taylor's face paled. Riley shifted uncomfortably. "Effective immediately," Darnell added. "This lounge is under direct review by corporate. Nobody working here walks back behind that desk until they've been retrained and reevaluated." Taylor opened her mouth again, but this time Darnell didn't flinch. "You're not being fired for today. You're being removed for everything before today. For the way people were treated when nobody was watching. The cameras saw it. The complaints show it. The silence confirmed it." Riley muttered something under his breath. "What was that?" Darnell asked. "I said, this is overkill." Darnell nodded slowly, then walked toward him until they were face to face. "You think this is about one mistake? I used to think like that too, but patterns don't form from one day. They form from habits, from arrogance, from people being too comfortable disrespecting strangers." He turned toward the others in the room. "Comfortable gatekeeping. That's the real problem here." The lounge had gone completely quiet. No one moved, no one sipped, no one typed. And then the young man in the tracksuit, Terrell, stepped inside the lounge, now cleared by the airport liaison. He glanced around, awkward but curious. "Y'all serious?" Darnell looked at him. "You're welcome here. You always were." Terrell grinned. "All right then." He took a seat, leaned back, and looked around like he owned the place. A few passengers chuckled. It was the first sound of relief in over 20 minutes. But Darnell knew that one lounge wasn't the only problem. The real issue went deeper, and he wasn't leaving until it was dealt with. An hour later, Darnell stood in a back office of the terminal. The lounge was now under temporary closure. Signs were posted. Staff had been escorted to the employee corridor for internal review procedures. But the confrontation wasn't over. Taylor sat across from him, arms folded. Riley leaned against the wall with forced indifference. 2 members of HR sat nearby. No lawyers, no cameras, just truth. "You've read the complaints?" Darnell asked calmly. Taylor didn't answer. "They're not all from guests," he added. "Some were written by your own coworkers, quietly, some anonymously. People who said they tried to bring things up, but it went nowhere. Taylor rolled her eyes. And you think firing me fixes it? I think accountability starts somewhere. She leaned forward. You came in here pretending to be someone else. What did you expect? I expected fairness, Darnell said. Respect. The kind you owe every person who walks through those doors. She shook her head. This whole thing is dramatic. People get checked all the time. Some folks just get sensitive about being told no. Did you ever consider, Darnell asked, that maybe people aren't being sensitive? They're just tired? That landed. Even Riley straightened up a bit. Darnell turned to him next. You said earlier this was overkill. Do you still believe that? Riley shrugged. I mean, I get it now. I guess I didn't see how bad it looked. I was just following how things were always done. There it is, Darnell said. He looked between them. That phrase, how things were always done. That's what keeps problems in place. That's what keeps doors closed to people who've already paid to walk through them. He stepped back and took a breath. You both had the chance to be the face of what this company stands for at one of our busiest terminals, and you used that power to judge, to dismiss, to mock. Taylor stiffened again. So what now? You're just going to throw us away? Darnell didn't answer immediately. He took a seat instead, leaned forward, and looked her in the eye. You don't get fired today because I'm angry. You get fired because too many people before you were ignored. We set standards here. You had chances. We gave training. You chose sarcasm over service, bias over professionalism. He stood. But here's what's different this time. I'm not leaving a vacuum. You're not being replaced with more of the same. We're rebuilding this lounge with a new team, a new structure, and a new set of eyes on it 24/7. Taylor looked down. No retort this time. Riley stayed silent too. Darnell gathered his things. I hope you both take this as more than just the end of a job. I hope it makes you look closer at how you show up in the world. Because titles don't last. Character does. He turned and opened the door to leave, pausing for just a second. We don't ground people at Sky Connect based on what they wear or what they look like. We don't strip people of dignity at the front desk. He looked over his shoulder. Not anymore. But Darnell knew words alone wouldn't fix what had rotted beneath the surface. He still had one final move to make before this chapter was closed. Darnell returned to the Sky Connect operations hub inside the terminal, where a secure room had been set up by corporate days before for internal audits. It wasn't much. Just a long conference table, a wall-mounted screen, and 3 laptops. Waiting inside were Alex Tran, head of customer experience, and Yvette Dorsey, the newly hired director of equity and accountability. She had a thick file already open in front of her. Mr. Whitaker, she said, standing up, we pulled the last 90 days of lounge access data, staff logs, and surveillance footage. It's worse than expected. He sat down. How bad? Alex answered. 73 documented incidents. 14 of those involved verbal complaints that went unrecorded by staff. 11 involved guests being escorted out. Every one of them either black or Latino. Yvette slid over a folder. 3 employees filed internal reports of discriminatory behavior by the lounge team. 2 of them said they were threatened with retaliation. 1 was reassigned. Darnell opened the file. The words hit like bricks. I was told I needed to stop letting just anyone in. Supervisor said certain folks just don't fit the image. When I said something, my hours got cut. He exhaled slowly. This isn't neglect, he said. This is culture. Yvette nodded. And culture can't be fixed with memos. Alex leaned forward. We've identified 3 more lounges with patterns just like this one. Similar staffing, similar gatekeeping behavior. You want us to start making calls? Darnell didn't answer right away. He turned to the screen, where a paused video still showed Taylor waving a white male passenger through without checking anything, time-stamped just 5 minutes after she blocked Darnell. He played the footage, then he played another and another. Same patterns, different days, same faces. He stood up, walked to the screen, and tapped the pause button. We'll start here, but this is going bigger. He looked at Yvette. I want you to develop a new training model. One that goes deeper than PowerPoints and scripted customer service videos. I want role play, immersion, case studies. I want people to feel what bias looks like, not just read about it. Yvette nodded, jotting notes. And consequences? Sharp ones, Darnell said. For management, especially. If you're a supervisor who looks away while your team disrespects people, you're part of the problem. Period. He turned to Alex. And I want a new employee feedback system. Direct to my desk. Every month. No filters. No rewrites. Alex blinked. All of them? That's a lot of... All of them, Darnell repeated. The room went quiet for a moment. Then Yvette asked, And the staff you removed today? Darnell glanced at the screen again. They'll be formally let go by the end of the day. HR is handling it. He stepped away from the table. But this isn't just about them. This is about the culture we've tolerated for too long. People think discrimination always shows up in slurs or violence, but sometimes it's just a look, a smirk, a delay, a refusal, a double standard dressed up as policy. He picked up his bag. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to make sure nobody else gets told they don't belong in a space they earned. He started walking toward the door. Alex called after him. You're heading back out there? Yeah, Darnell said without stopping. Where to? He paused. The gate. There's something I still need to say. But the gate wasn't just about travel. It was about the people watching, listening, and waiting for someone to finally say the truth out loud. Gate 24A. A looked different now. What had been just another terminal corner filled with tired passengers and coffee cups was now a crowd gathered near the windows. People whispering, pointing discreetly, and waiting for what they sensed was coming next. Darnell stood in front of the window facing them, a mic clipped to his jacket. The Sky Connect media team had arrived minutes earlier, quietly setting up for what they were calling an impromptu executive statement. But it was more than that. This was the moment everything had to change. Darnell looked into the cameras, then back to the people, the frequent flyers, the economy passengers, the employees off shift, standing in uniform at the back of the group. One was Terrell, still in his tracksuit, nodding with arms crossed. Another was the older woman from the lounge, standing beside a younger black flight attendant with tired eyes and a hopeful look. Darnell adjusted the mic, then spoke. My name is Darnell R. Whitaker. I'm the CEO of Sky Connect Airlines. The crowd quieted. You could hear zippers being closed, phones being silenced. I didn't come here this morning to give a speech. I came here to see what our guests experience when no one's watching. I wore a hoodie. I carried a backpack. I didn't tell anyone who I was, and within 5 minutes, I was told to wait outside. He let that breathe. That didn't hurt my feelings. I've been underestimated before, but what I saw after that hurt something else. It hurt our values. It hurt people who've trusted this company with their travel, their time, their money, and got disrespected in return. Darnell glanced toward the lounge where the lights had been dimmed and a small red, temporarily closed sign now hung from the door. We've just relieved the management team from our Gate 24 Sky Lounge, he said, not for a single mistake, but for creating and maintaining a culture that pushed certain people aside while letting others in without question. A few people in the crowd murmured, some nodded. This isn't a PR stunt. We didn't stage this. We didn't script it. This is a reset, and it's going to be hard, because systems don't change just because one person says so. They change when truth is met with action, when leadership looks like showing up uncomfortable and doing the right thing anyway. He paused again. Every Sky Connect lounge in the country is being re-audited starting today. New training is being built. Feedback will go straight to my desk. And frontline staff, the people who interact with you first, will be held to the same standard we expect of executives. The terminal was still. Darnell glanced around at the faces, some skeptical, some inspired. You don't have to clap. You don't have to believe me right now. Just watch what we do next. He looked straight into the camera one last time. We can't fly as a company if we're dragging people down on the ground. From now on, we're lifting everyone up, no matter what they look like, where they're from, or what they're wearing. Then he stepped away. No applause, no music. Just a room full of people staring at a man who'd just flipped a switch. A few moments later, the older woman walked up and gently touched his elbow. You didn't have to do all this, she said, but I'm glad you did. Darnell smiled. I didn't do it for me. She nodded. I know. But there was still one last thing he needed to say, not to the crowd, not to the press, but to the future of the company. The day was nearly over. Flights came and went, passengers boarded, and terminal speakers buzzed with gate changes and final calls. But tucked away in a quiet corner of the Sky Connect executive office suite inside the airport, Darnell sat alone at a table with a yellow legal pad and a black pen. No cameras, no assistants, no distractions. Just one page and the weight of what came next. He scribbled at the top, "Memo to all Sky. Connect employees, effective immediately." Then he paused, tapped the pen twice, and started writing. To everyone across Sky Connect, from the agents on the floor to the captains in the sky. Today, I saw what many of you have already seen and lived through. I saw the side of our company we try not to talk about. The side where quiet bias becomes routine, where professionalism is filtered through assumptions, where service becomes selective. Let me be clear, that ends now. We will not lead this company with fear, but with honesty. And honesty tells me that we've looked away too many times, not because we didn't care, but because the truth felt too heavy. Well, now it's ours to carry. Darnell stopped and took a long breath. He glanced over to a photo on the wall, a group shot of Sky Connect's first cohort of maintenance trainees, from back when the company only had 18 planes. Two of the people in that photo were now executives. The others had left, retired, or faded into the background. One of them, he remembered clearly, had once told him, "You can't lead with your eyes closed and expect the plane to fly straight." He kept writing. "We are launching a mandatory program across all locations, not just training, but transformation. If you work here, you'll be asked hard questions. You'll be uncomfortable. And if that bothers you more than injustice does, this might not be the place for you anymore. But if you're here to grow, to serve with dignity, empathy, and purpose, then this is your moment. We are rebuilding. We are choosing better. We are listening, finally." He stopped writing, sat back, let the silence in the room settle. The door opened gently. It was Yvette, holding a folder. "Media wants a final quote," she said. "You want me to handle it?" Darnell shook his head. He grabbed the memo, folded it, and stood. "Tell them this," he said. "Tell them we grounded a few people today, but only because we plan to take off tomorrow." Yvette smiled. And with that, Darnell stepped out of the room and walked toward Gate 24A, not as a CEO looking for recognition, but as a man making good on a promise. He passed a janitor scrubbing the floor and stopped for a second. "Hey," he said. "Thanks for keeping this place together today." The janitor looked up, surprised. "No problem, sir. What's your name?" "Curtis." "Well, Curtis, if no one's told you today, we see you, and we need more like you." Curtis grinned. "Appreciate that." Darnell kept walking. No press around, no applause waiting, just the next gate, the next person, the next choice to do right. Because real leadership doesn't need a stage. It needs consistency. It needs humility. And it needs the courage to stop pretending we don't see what's been broken and finally fix it. Because when the people on the ground are treated right, the whole company flies higher. Respect isn't something you give to just a suit, a smile, or a title. It's something every human being deserves, the second they walk through the door. If you've ever witnessed someone being dismissed or disrespected based on how they looked, don't stay quiet. Speak up. The smallest voice can start the biggest change. Share this story with someone who believes leadership starts with listening.